The Shawshank Redemption. Some people would do anything to escape prison, even if it meant getting dirty. But one escape attempt in Brazil was so disgusting that it left the prisoner covered in human excrement and still behind bars. Now, this incident happened in January 2016 at a prison in the Sao Paulo region of Brazil. A video captured the moment when the unnamed prisoner tried to wriggle through a hole in the ground that led to a communal lavatory. The hole was so small that he had to dive headfirst into that filthy water, hoping to find a way out. Wearing only a pair of shorts, he twists one way and the next as it dawns on him that he has gotten stuck in the clogged sewage system. But his plan would backfire as he got stuck in the narrow pipe and had to be pulled out by his fellow inmates. Completely coated with human waste, you can see the man standing in his cell, reeling from his ordeal. That video went viral on social media, earning him the nickname Shawshank Redemption, a reference to the famous prison escape movie, The Shawshank Redemption. The prison authorities didn't comment on the escape attempt. However, it's unlikely that the prisoner will face any additional charges, as he didn't manage to even leave the prison's premises. He should have known better. As any visitor to Brazil knows, the fragile state of the sewage system means that no one's supposed to flush even toilet paper down the lavatory, let alone an actual person. Casey White. It was supposed to be her last day at work before retirement, but instead of celebrating, she ended up on the run with a convicted felon and a murder suspect. On the morning on that fateful day, Vicky White, the assistant director of corrections at the jail, told her colleagues that she was taking Casey White, who was awaiting trial for the 2015 murder of 59-year-old Connie Ridgway, to the county courthouse for a mental health evaluation. She also said she felt ill and would see a doctor afterward. She then escorted Casey, who was handcuffed and shackled, to a police vehicle and drove away. The two never returned to the detention center. Both the mental health evaluation and the doctor's visit were both lies. Vicky had planned this escape with Casey, who she'd been involved with romantically for some time. They abandoned the police car at a gas station and switched to a black Cadillac sedan that Vicky had rented earlier. Now, the deputies discovered the escape at the jail when they checked the courthouse's itinerary and found out that there were no hearings or evaluations scheduled that day. They also checked the CCTV and realized that Vicky had willingly helped Casey flee. For 10 days, the fugitive couple evaded capture, traveling across several states. They used fake IDs and credit cards to check into hotels and buy supplies. They also dyed their hair and altered appearance to avoid detection. They would communicate through burner phones and encrypted messages. They were spotted several times by witnesses and surveillance cameras, but managed to slip away before the authorities arrived. How can a veteran corrections officer, who'd been named Employee of the Year at the jail, fall in love with a cold-blooded killer and risk everything to help him escape? Is Vicky a willing accomplice or a liability?
They've got weapons. That's what's scary. And does he really need Vicky anymore? That's the big question. Is she a liability? This guy's almost 7 foot tall, 260 pounds. She's 5 foot.
Eventually, a cop spotted the fugitive couple in Evansville, Indiana. The officer recognized the Cadillac sedan, ran its license plate, and found out that it was listed as stolen. He tried to pull him over, but they sped away, leading to a high-speed chase. The chase ended with the authorities ramming into that Cadillac and pushing it into a ditch. As the officers approached the car, they heard a gunshot from inside. They found Vicky White with a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. Vicky died from the gunshot and was confirmed dead in the hospital. Casey White was arrested and taken into custody. He had minor injuries from the crash but was otherwise unharmed. He was extradited to Alabama, where he faced additional charges of prison escape and felony murder for Vicky's death. Jed Hawk Myers. Jed Hawk Myers was supposed to be released from the Yamhill County Jail in McMinnville, Oregon on May 28, 2015. Instead, he would die alone in a medical cell, hours after being brutally beaten by 2 other inmates and denied emergency medical care by the jail staff. Myers was being held on a probation violence for a drug-related offense. He had a history of mental health and substance abuse problems, but he was also a loving father, son, and brother, according to his family. On May 27, 2015, he was attacked by 2 other inmates, Joshua Ian Mulbrett, 25, and Zachary Michael Chronister, 20, who were later convicted of second-degree manslaughter and sent to prison for his death. Now, the motive is unclear, but according to investigative reports, Mulbrett and Chronister punched, kicked, and stomped on Myers, causing many injuries including a lacerated kidney, a skull contusion, and rib and clavicle fractures. The attack lasted for about 10 minutes, until the guards found him lying on the floor, bleeding and disoriented.
As we went to walk into the cell, Myers stepped out of the cell and walked towards me and was incoherent because I kept telling him to stop walking towards me and he kept walking towards me. I said it 3 times until I finally stopped him in his place. He was sweaty and panting and he said his chest hurt. And I said, "Where does it hurt?" And he touched his stomach.
Instead of calling an ambulance or a doctor, the guards moved him to a medical cell, where a medical technician conducted a cursory examination.
Myers took off his shirt, and I could tell that his shoulder, what I observed to be, was dislocated. There was something protruding towards the front, and the shoulder did not look like a normal shoulder. I observed a sore on the front and back of his shoulders, what I would call an open sore. It wasn't bleeding, but it was shiny. You could tell that it was open. It looked relatively fresh. I didn't see any scabbing, but it was not bleeding.
The technician noted that Myers was sweating profusely, had an elevated heart rate, and had a contusion on his head, but he left after failing to get a blood pressure reading. He recommended placing Myers on a 30-minute medical watch, which meant monitoring him through a security video and checking on him hourly for the next 5 hours. Myers suffered in agony while the jail staff ignored his pleas for help. He writhed in pain on his mattress, clutched his side, walked to his cell door, pressed the intercom button 19 times, and urinated blood in the cell toilet, but no one responded. One guard told investigators that staff often silenced the intercoms when inmates were considered too needy. Another guard speculated that the red liquid in the toilet was fruit juice or something else from the commissary. At 12:52 a.m., the guards finally went to the cell when they noticed Myers slumped against the wall. They couldn't find a pulse and called emergency medics, but it was too late. Myers was pronounced dead at 1:15 a.m. on May 28, 2015. The day he was supposed to be released. An autopsy later revealed he died of blunt force abdominal trauma with extensive internal bleeding. Myers' family filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against Yamhill County, its jail guards, and medical staff, alleging they denied basic medical care to Myers and that their negligence led to his wrongful death. In July 2017, the county agreed to pay $5 million to settle the lawsuit, one of the largest settlements in Oregon history for a jail death. Christopher Lopez. Christopher Lopez was a 35-year-old man suffering from schizophrenia and hyponatremia, a condition that occurs when there's not enough sodium in the blood. Having a troubled childhood, he suffered from mental illness. He was diagnosed as a schizophrenic in 2005 after he had a psychotic episode in the Weld County Jail where he believed he was Jesus Christ. He was incarcerated multiple times for minor offenses, such as assault and trespassing. In 2007, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison for assaulting a corrections officer. He was transferred to San Carlos Correctional Facility, a prison specializing in treating mentally ill inmates. There, he spent 9.5 months in solitary confinement, a practice that's been under criticism for worsening the mental health of prisoners. He was taken out of solitary on March 15, 2013, 2 days before his death. On March 17, 2013, around 3:30 a.m., prison staff noticed that Lopez was lying on the floor of his cell, unresponsive. They thought he was faking it and decided to take him out. They dragged him, put him in handcuffs and leg irons, and placed him in a restraint chair, a device that immobilizes limbs and torso. They would put a spit hood on his head, a mesh fabric covering the face preventing spitting or biting, and left him in the chair for over 2 hours without checking his vital signs. Now, during this time, Lopez had 2 grand mal seizures, a type of seizure involving violent muscle contractions and a loss of consciousness. He also had labored breathing and foaming at the mouth. The staff ignored the distress and mocked him. They said things like, "You're not gonna die on me, are you?" and "I can see you breathing." As they talked about things like shopping and movies, Lopez was dying right before him. Around 6 a.m., they moved him from the chair to the floor near a toilet. He was still shackled and hooded. He continued having seizures and difficulty breathing. He also urinated on himself. The prison staff didn't care. They joked and laughed while he slowly died. Around 9 a.m., a mental health clinician, Cheryl Neumeister, arrived and greeted the staff. She would also mock Lopez without knowing he was already dead. After a few minutes, she left without calling for medical help or try to resuscitate him. Lopez was pronounced dead at 9:10 a.m. after 6 hours of torture. As to avoid anger from the public, the prison officials tried to cover up his death. However, Lopez's mom, Juanita Lopez filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Colorado Department of Corrections and several prison employees. At the end of the investigation, the CDC agreed to pay her $3 million in compensation for her son's death. Matthew Trevino, a schizophrenic Army veteran, had a psychotic episode in his cell at the Pasco County Jail in Florida. In August 2015, he'd been booked earlier that day on a probation violation for a misdemeanor charge.
What's going on with the food shoot? I mean, is he gonna...
He's not gonna go away from the door.
What, is he gonna throw something out of the food chute? What's he gonna throw?
Genitals there. Genitals
Alright.
are obstructing the
Okay.
So we'll open the door and...
Well...
He refused to cooperate with the deputies wanting to search his cell for contraband. He stripped naked, exposed his genitals, shouted incoherently, and banged his head against the wall.
Trevino, get over here and cuff up!
Put your hands above your head! Get on the ground!
The deputies tried to subdue him with pepper spray and firing rubber bullets, but Trevino didn't comply. He stood near the door of his cell, holding a blanket. That's when Corporal Robert Haas, a corrections officer, decided to shoot him with a 12-gauge shotgun loaded with a Nova flashbang round. A Nova round is a non-lethal device producing a loud noise and a bright flash of light. It was to be used as an indirect fire diversionary load, not a direct fire weapon. The video of the shooting, recorded by another deputy, shows Haas aiming his shotgun at Trevino's chest and firing through the slot of the cell door. Trevino falls to the ground, screaming in pain. He suffered severe burns and bruises on his chest and abdomen. He was taken to the hospital, where he spent several days in intensive care. He still bears the scars. Trevino's attorney, Mark Rankin, filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the Pasco County Sheriff's Office, alleging that Haas used excessive and unreasonable force against Trevino, who posed no threat to anyone. The lawsuit also claimed the office failed to train and supervise its employees on how to deal with mentally ill inmates, and that it violated Trevino's constitutional rights to due process and equal protection. The video of the incident contradicts the official reports filed by the deputies involved in the incident. The report says that Trevino stepped back from the door, giving Haas a window of opportunity to fire the Nova round at him. But the video shows that Trevino stood right against that door when Haas pulled the trigger. Rankin said that the video proves that the shooting was completely unnecessary and that there was no reason to use such a level of force. Sheriff Chris Noko defended Haas's actions, saying that he acted lawfully and that Trevino was a criminal with a violent history in the jail. El Chapo's escape. He was Mexico's most notorious drug lord, the leader of the powerful Sinaloa cartel, and a billionaire on the Forbes list. He was a master of escape, managing to break out of 2 high-security prisons in his criminal career. His name is Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, and this is the story of how he pulled off his most daring and audacious escape in 2015. It was Saturday night, July 11th, 2015, at the Altiplano Federal Prison, about 56 miles west of Mexico City. El Chapo was in his cell, equipped with a video surveillance system, motion sensors, and steel-reinforced concrete walls. He was last seen on camera at 8:52 p.m. in the shower area of his cell. This shower section is partially obscured from the cameras. However, the guards didn't know that under the shower stall was a 20 by 20 inch hole leading to a secret tunnel. El Chapo had somehow managed to dig or access this hole without being detected, and he was about to use it to make his escape. Now, this tunnel wasn't a crude, improvised hole, but a sophisticated and well-engineered passageway. It was more than a mile long, containing lighting, ventilation, and a motorcycle mounted on rails. El Chapo and tunnel diggers used that bike to transport tools, materials, and dirt to speed up his journey through that tunnel. Also equipped down there were PVC pipes, presumably for communication or air supply. It was 5 foot 6 inches high, just enough for El Chapo, nicknamed Shorty, to walk comfortably. The tunnel reportedly took a year to build and cost about $5 million. The tunnel ended at an abandoned construction site where a half-built house house waited for El Chapo. There he changed outfits and boarded a vehicle headed straight to a nearby town. From there he boarded a small plane, flying him to his home state of Sinaloa, where he had a loyal network of supporters and a mountainous terrain that favored his hiding. The escape didn't get discovered until a routine check at 9:15 p.m. when the guards found his cell empty and a hole under the shower. He had a 23-minute head start and a well-planned escape route. The authorities immediately launched a massive manhunt involving thousands of troops, police, and agents, as well as helicopters, checkpoints, and roadblocks. They would alert airports, border crossings, and foreign governments. However, El Chapo had eluded them once again. It was his second escape from a max security prison after his first one in 2001, when he bribed his way out and reportedly hid in a laundry cart. He'd been on the run for 13 years until his capture in 2014, when he was found in a beach resort. And that's it for the video. If you do want to see more criminal cases or crazy courtroom moments, why don't you check out this video and don't forget to subscribe.